Before I start, can I just say that if anyone is going to be leaving me comments like, you should be glad you weren't born with a withered arm, or yeah, clearly I'm glad that my eyes work, clearly I'm glad that I have my eyesight, clearly I'm glad that, you know, I wasn't born with a deformity which prevented me in any perceptible way from living my life. But that doesn't mean that there aren't psychological implications to having a facial deformity that isn't that's purely cosmetic. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And if that seems like fucking self-love or weepy, pathetic to you, fine, move on, because it affects me. So, ptosis. What is ptosis? Ptosis can have many different causes. Congenital, that means you're born with it because of a genetic deformity, or because of some kind of damage to you in the womb, or as a fetus, or to the uterus itself. Medical conditions can bring on ptosis. Some snake bites can bring on ptosis. And sometimes ptosis comes on all by itself. If you're born with it, you can have corrective surgery, which I had. I can't lift my eyelid above that. The other one works perfectly, but I can't lift my eyelid above that. Sorry, I succumbed to the devil weed and went outside to smoke. Social, of course, clearly anyone's appearance affects how people perceive them. And this has kind of quite specific implications for people born with facial deformities. And I can't really tell you about everyone's experience, but I can tell you about my own. From as young, before I had corrective surgery, I'll talk over the picture now and show it to you. This is me at 5 years old, looking pretty cute, but extremely lazy-eyed, and that's what I would have always looked like had it not been for the corrective surgery. My earliest real memory of socialising was kids coming up to me in the playground and saying, "What's wrong with your eye?" And at the time, I was aware of what was wrong. I went through eye hospitals as a kid, loads of eye hospitals and loads of eye tests and all of that kind of stuff. So I'd had this funky little, medical explanation to give to people about, and I actually at the time I kind of thought it was something that made me special, not less than other people. I was kind of proud to tell people, to explain it, that there's nothing wrong with my eye. It's just the way I was born was how that explanation would always begin. And then when I was about 10 years old, I had corrective surgery. The surgery itself wasn't particularly traumatic for me. I was quite brave as a 10-year-old. I think most 10-year-olds are, bounce back very quickly. But I do still have very enduring memories of a consultation after the eye surgery, the kind of final one to discharge me from the hospital, of the woman kind of talking about what life would be like, how I should, go through life. And I remember her and my mum discussing, I was 10 years old at the time, how, I could curl my eyelashes on one eyelid and wear, mascara, and she said, she can probably learn some, makeup techniques to hide it when she's older. And that was the first time, even though loads of kids had always asked me what's wrong with your eye, that was the first time that I ever really felt that there was something wrong with me rather than special about me. This thing, that I, corrective surgery to improve the appearance and how I could hide this thing was the way that it was discussed with me at that age. And so after that I became a lot more conscious of it, and by the age of about 11 years old I was wearing mascara and curling one eyelid every day, and that's actually never stopped. Despite the fact that I'm, a feminist and potentially don't really care very much about, being perceived as sexually attractive so much as intellectually adequate. And when I was a teenager, when people become much more image conscious anyway, it was like hell. Kids used to come up to me at school and talk to me with one eyelid kind of closed, but they talked to me really nice and friendly, and then everyone would be laughing and I couldn't work out why until I looked closer and worked out, they're making a lazy-eyed joke. People made pirate jokes at me, and there were lots of reasons I was hated at school, and a lot of them were things that I'm proud of now, like not being homophobic. I think that this idea of me kind of realising that I shouldn't even try to be attractive was when I was back at college level studying A-level psychology, and I was learning, I think, social psychological approach to theories of attraction between people, romantic attraction. And there were quite a few studies to show that we rated that basically symmetry and attractiveness were highly correlated. That is to say, the more symmetrical a person is, the more attractive we find them, because it shows good genes. So that kind of taught me two things, which was that people don't find me attractive, and that I have bad genes and should never have children. And that's a much more extreme version of, I think, what a lot of feminists go through to come to the realization that this is all that makeup and figure hugging clothes and stuff are all a big kind of game that is being put onto women and not necessary to self-worth whatsoever. Even though as an adult now, my only real experiences of people saying, oh, it's really not that noticeable, you really can't see it, you know. My family have no understanding as to why I find it, why I'm so conscious of it so much of the time. And they're like, you know, it's really not that obvious, and that's what boyfriends say, and that's what my best friend says. But then things will happen, like from about 10 feet away, a guy got blind drunk, a guy got off the bus, staggered off the bus, and walked straight, a beeline straight up to me and went, what's wrong with your eye? And it's just like, wow, if someone this drunk can see that from 10 feet away, then this is really, you know, as obvious as I think it is. It means that a lot of the time I'm not able to make eye contact with people when I talk to them, not because I'm not able to, but because I can't. When I make eye contact with people, suddenly it's like my eyelid is almost like burning with awareness, and I kind of instantly have to look away because I can't bear the idea of looking at someone and having them stare at my eyelid and trying to work out what's wrong with me. And it used to be that I would introduce myself in social situations, you know, reasonably quickly, like, well, I suppose you're all wondering what's wrong with my eyelid. Because I couldn't bear leaving the room and having people after I'd left be like, what was wrong with her eyelid? Did anyone notice that there was something? And nowadays it's just kind of like, I try, you know, I don't talk about it unless someone directly asks me about it, or unless I'm talking to a close friend or a boyfriend. I don't tell people things like that. I suppose I hope that people won't notice it. But I'm aware of it, and it's things like, you know, sitting on the underground and having people sitting facing you and not wanting to look up, and being very aware of never looking up from below like this, always trying to kind of move my head to look up. And it's, at times I feel very angry with myself because it's such an insignificant thing in the world. You know, people living terrible, terrible lives here in the West and abroad. Awful lives, and this is what upsets me. One of the things that upsets me. It seems so insignificant, and yet I can't seem to kick this feeling that from birth I was never going to be beautiful. From birth I never had a chance of being normal. I would always be an outcast, and I always will be an outcast, and that it'll only get more apparent as I get older, as I become generally more attractive, more unattractive, and less appealing anyway. And I think it has specific implications for women. Because I think with a lot of the time with men, you don't need to be attractive to have an attractive partner and a successful job. And there's a lot more emphasis on a woman's worth being in her appearance. So I think sometimes that it would have been easier for me if I was male. But then I think, you know, actually I get a lot of attention purely because I'm female and young, that I would never have got, and I would have had to be that lazy-eyed man, you know, going up and hitting on women knowing that, you know, I look like this. So maybe I was lucky, even though there is a lot more pressure on women to be attractive. There are also kind of techniques, makeup techniques and things that I suppose I can employ that someone with a male with a lazy eye can't, with social acceptability, employ. Still, I suppose that in conclusion, it doesn't actually necessarily impede the road to success. There are lots of famous people with lazy eyes. Well, actually, I can think of two famous people with lazy eyes off the top of my head. Paris Hilton actually has ptosis in one eyelid and has had very good reconstructive surgery, but if you search Paris Hilton ptosis, you'll bring up some of the more clear images of her where you can see that she still has it. And Tom York from Radiohead is my lazy-eyed hero, although clearly very, very depressed. But anyway, I hope you're all well, and I'm not very well, but I'm not going to be making videos about it, so if you want to speak to me about shit, then email me. And if you have ptosis yourself and you'd like to share your experience, then please be my guest, and I hope you're all well.